Welcome to the Hire Truckers Podcast, where we interview experts in driver recruiting. We provide industry insights, marketing trends, and motivation to help you level up your recruiting game.
Welcome to the Hire Truckers Podcast. I'm your host, Ginger Craddock. Today, we're diving into stories of resilience, leadership, and excellence. Real experiences from people in our industry who inspire, challenge, and remind us what it truly means to lead with integrity. So I want you to grab a cup of coffee, settle in, and let's hear what they have to say. The first clip I want to share with you today comes from Dawn Erickson at Waste Management. True resilience starts with choices. Dawn's a great example of someone that I know who consistently chooses integrity even when it's hard.
I really like being able to do the right thing and make sure that I'm taking care of our employees. Sometimes that right thing is not the comfortable thing. In HR, you have to make those decisions. You have to sit there and say, I would do this for my best employee, and I would do this for my most questionable employee. And that's really what brings the integrity to HR.
When you lead with integrity, every decision becomes a foundation for trust. In our second clip, Ellen Voya, founder of Women in Trucking, shares that clarity and candor build that foundation of integrity. Ellen is also the author of From Dispatcher to Disruptor, One Woman's Journey to Drive Gender Diversity in the Trucking Industry. Here's what Ellen had to say.
One of the things that people always say that, when they hire someone, they're looking for someone with the communication skills. And so I think candor falls under that. It's the communication skills. And I've always been interested in communication. And I have my undergrad is journalism, communication, and my graduate degree is actually in interpersonal communication. So I feel that I've always been that kind of a straightforward, say what you're thinking, which could be offensive to some people who aren't used to that kind of being forthright. But I think that when you're in a job that people don't normally see someone who looks like you in that job, you have to be straightforward. You have to state what it is that you're looking for or what you need, because if you beat around the bush, they're not going to get it.
That candor, that honesty, it clears up confusion. Our next highlight is from Caleb G. Honesty is more than a philosophy. It's a process. Caleb breaks down some of the ways Nussbaum Transportation uses radical honesty to prevent surprises and build long-lasting driver relationships.
I think the issue is still omission, right? Where if a driver doesn't ask, then you don't say anything. And part of that's a two-pronged problem, is you have the driver not knowing what they should ask and asking the right questions. But then you have a company that's going, here's something that's not great. I know it's not great, and I know other people didn't like it, but they didn't ask, so I'm not going to tell them. That's a waste of everybody's time, the company's time, the driver's time, everything. And so here, I don't think we've never phrased it as radical honesty, but that's a perfect way to phrase it. Is we have a list of dozens of items that whether a driver asks about it or not, you're going to sit and listen to us go through this list so you know every little detail about working here. That's everything from equipment to how the bonus works, to what size dog you can bring, to health insurance, to how many miles you're going to get a week, how those miles are paid, everything. That way there is and then multiple times during that conversation where things are sent to them in writing. So, okay, you've got it in writing. We've literally now gone through it on the phone together. You can ask any question you want, and we're going to get an answer for you, because we want to know that it's a good fit for you and it's a good fit for us, versus surprise, you got here and for 2 weeks, 2 weeks in, you realize, oh, this is nothing what I was told. And even in still doing that, I would say the average conversation with a driver before hiring them is an hour. And that's after you've done all the, basic questions for just getting an app filled out and everything else, right? So that phone call, anywhere from 45 minutes to 2 hours, And you still will get drivers that will come in and go, no, that's not what I was told. I was like, well, here it is in writing. Or, yeah, that's exactly what you told me. I've literally had this happen before where, yeah, it's exactly what you told me. I just thought it would be different when I got here. And you're always going to have that. But at that point, well, we've done everything we possibly could to mitigate that situation happening versus, hey, I'm only going to tell you the answers to the 3 questions you asked, and we'll see you when you get here, right? And they show up with a 90-pound pit bull, and it's like, oh, we're going for a ride. Well, no, not in our truck, right? So, yeah, having those conversations and forcing those conversations. So, somebody that calls in and just says, hey, yeah, I'm ready to start. When can I come? Whoa. Let's slow down and talk about this to make sure it's a good fit for both of us.
When expectations are clear, service becomes meaningful. That brings us to our very own Alexandra Chrisman, who frames service as making every interaction better. I know this because I have the great privilege of working with Alexandra every day. Alexandra doesn't just talk about client success, Alexandra embodies it.
I always find myself serving others, and that's always kind of what I say is kind of what I feel like I was made to do, was to find ways I can make other people's lives better. Anyone that comes across my path, how can I make their life better after we interact than it was before? And that's kind of what the client success thing is. I know some people may think that I'm being overly like sensationalizing in that way, but I really do look at my job as, how can I make this better for our clients? How can I make it easy? How can I make it helpful? How can I be supportive? And all of that. And I think that is, that really is kind of what drew me to it. And I think that's what's really, kept me excited about it for the last couple of years.
Service includes protecting people when it matters most. Next, my friend Melanie Moore at Ozark Motor Lines shares a concrete example of responding to safety concerns with urgency and care.
So whenever I get a DM that's about safety, I take it seriously because we as a company take safety seriously. And I know that our safety team would want to know that this is going on. So as soon as I get something that's safety related, I will screenshot the messages and I will send them to our safety team in an email. And getting an email from me is kind of like a, hey, red flag, Melanie sending an email on a Saturday. So maybe I should look at it. So especially, if they said our driver came over into their lane or something like that, the safety team can get the truck number, the location, and the time, and they can use the Lytx camera footage to look at what happened. And from there, they're able to coach the driver. They're able to give me more information about what happened, so I know how to respond to the customer. And that way I can say, hey, even if I don't have an answer yet from safety, I've sent this over to our safety department, and they're going to look into it. Because I want them to know that it's important to us and that whatever happened to them did not go unnoticed, and that helps de-escalate the situation.
Now let's take a minute to thank today's sponsor. Do you hire truck drivers in hard-to-fill areas, or do you need help creating efficiency in your recruiting department? You're not alone. With 50-plus years experience, Trucking Click specializes in data-driven strategies, industry-leading customer experience, and custom solutions that'll get you to your goal. Trucking Clicks is your go-to place for high-quality, direct leads at scale. Visit truckingclicks.com or call 512-982-0816 today.
Service-backed actions build credibility. Melanie's the gold star example of turning problems into trust with responsiveness. Trust multiplies when people help each other. That brings us to our next highlight from Jason Douglas, an experienced recruiting, retention, and operations leader in trucking.
If I can help somebody out, I always offer it. Give me a call, give me a text, and it's genuine. Sometimes people just think it's just something that you say, but I mean it really genuine. Anyone that's reached out to me or talked to me in the past, we can't have enough friends, and I'm nobody's competition in this industry. I don't care if they work down the road. We can work as friends. If my driver works out better for your company, all power to them. You might offer them something that I can't, and I wish them nothing but the best. People have so long hoarded their drivers, and I think it's, you know what, they could be well suited somewhere else. And if they are, all I want is what's best for that driver.
Jason understands that helping others is how communities grow and people thrive. When leaders put people first, the relationship becomes the antidote to high turnover. Keith Stetzer at Paper Transport, he takes us a layer deeper on the importance of relationships and culture in our next highlight.
No matter what you do, right, there is a better paying job out there, right? There's always a job that has a little bit better schedule. But people, I'm not going to say they don't leave companies, but more often they do leave managers. They do leave the people that they work for. And, I think that's something that we can never lose sight of, and when you're thinking about your culture and what you're going to do to prevent turnover, right, you have to be focused there. I also think as you're hiring people in too, you need to be putting them at the forefront.
Relationships and culture reward persistence. Sometimes persistence takes education and grit to pay off. Wayne Skinner's story shows that Wayne did his part to be prepared, and he left the timing to God. I wonder, are you doing your part and you're waiting on the timing? Here's what Wayne had to say.
So going from a heavy truck industry into a ground support equipment industry, still a lot of similarities, but an opportunity to grow. And in between that time at Schneider and while I was a senior tech at FedEx, I did go and become a non-traditional student. I did complete a business degree and then took advantage of the Army College Fund, the GI Bill, and on also some of the college funds available for National Guardsmen, and completed my engineering degree at University of Memphis. And I really had a desire to move into an engineering role. And I can remember after graduating, I was still a senior technician at FedEx, and I had applied for my very first associate engineer position, and this was more on the operations side. And I can remember all that time and effort putting into working and then going to school and trying to keep my grades up and trying to excel and win scholarships and those types of things. And I can remember I applied for this role and I hadn't heard anything. I had no communication from the hiring manager. And I remember just being discouraged. And I remember telling my wife, I'm like, I've done all this and, what if it was for nothing? And she, in her wise ways, she said, God did not bring you through all of that to just leave you standing still. And she was trying to encourage me. She was being very blunt with me, as she tends to do. And Ginger, I'm not exaggerating, as soon as she finished making that comment to me, my phone rang. And it was the hiring manager that had asked me to show up for an interview that next week. So you talk about just a memorable experience that going through that, and it was such a tough time. But I did get hired as that associate engineer position and moved into ops engineering.
Preparation builds confidence, but maturity shapes how we use that confidence. Alicia Grayson reflects on what maturity really means as she seeks her next great opportunity to serve the trucking industry.
Yeah, so maturity used to mean to me that everything had to be perfect. It was all about perfection in everything. Now that I look at maturity, I don't think that's what it is. It's more about knowing yourself, your strengths, your patterns, your blind spots, your weaknesses, what you need to do. It's not about acting a certain way. It's more about and not running on autopilot. It's knowing how to respond. But, back in the day, I used to think, well, I'm mature if I'm perfect in everything I do. That's not the case. It's more about knowing yourself.
And finally, the leadership move that ties it all together, emotional intelligence. Ricky Becker at FedEx Freight closes us out with the practice of reading the room.
I think one of the biggest lessons I've learned as I've grown as a leader, and I've I haven't done this well, and I've done it really well, and all the in-betweens is just read the room. Ebb and flow your delivery based on, how everybody else is feeling. Do a little vibe check. Maybe you have to have a tough conversation with somebody and you can tell today's just not the day. Instead of being negative and, making it not a productive conversation, change it to tomorrow. There's always tomorrow. Every time you wake up in the morning, it's a new start. It's a new day. Brush off yesterday and just, try to, like I keep saying, ebbing and flowing. And, I think that's probably my best advice because I've had the negative emails that have been sent out to everybody, and there's never a good reaction to that.
As we wrap up today's episode, I just want to take a moment to let all of this sink in. Every person that we heard from, Dawn, Ellen, Caleb, Alexandra, Melanie, Jason, Keith, Wayne, Alicia, and Ricky, each one opened a window into what real leadership looks like in our industry. It's not the polished kind. It's not the perfect kind, but it's the honest kind of leadership, the human kind of leadership. What stood out to me is how consistent the thread is. Integrity, candor, honesty, service and community, resilience, emotional intelligence. You see, in the real world, these aren't buzzwords. These are the choices that we make every day. Each person we heard from today is out there living it. Sometimes in quiet ways, and sometimes in big, bold steps, but always with purpose. I love this industry, and it's because of people like them and people like you who show up with intention and heart every single day. That's how we build trust, and this is how we build culture. This is how we take care of each other on and off the road. So thank you for listening. Thank you for learning with me. Thank you for doing the work that makes trucking better every single day. I'm Ginger Craddock, and this has been the Hire Truckers Podcast. Until next time, lead well, serve well, and keep choosing the kind of integrity that moves people forward.
Thank you for joining us today. Our goal with the Hire Truckers Podcast is to provide industry insights, marketing trends, and motivation to level up your recruiting game. If we added value, take a few seconds to share this with your network. Have a great week.